Hi, welcome to the third video in the Network of Sex Work Projects, NSWP, series Global Fund Basics. In this video, we're going to look at catalytic investment and touch briefly on prioritized above allocation requests, also known as PAR. Catalytic investments are an additional portion of funding made available to countries for global fund-supported programs, activities and strategic investments that are not fully covered through country allocations. Global fund catalytic investments support programs, activities and strategic initiatives that complement country allocations and that are deemed essential to achieve the aims of the Global Fund Strategy 2017 to 2022 and will be important for the new Global Fund Strategy that will cover 2023 to 2028. Catalytic investments are also seen as contributing to achieving the global health plans of UNAIDS, Stop TB and Roll Back Malaria within the context of Global Fund grants. For the 2020-2022 funding period, a total of $890 million has been allocated for catalytic investments and will cover three main areas. Matching funds, which is to incentivize and support increased domestic investment and increased focus in the programming of country allocations for priority areas. Multi-country approaches, meaning investments to be allocated for critical, predefined areas in specific geographic regions, and strategic initiatives, or SIs. These are initiatives that support the success of country allocations and include the CCM Evolution Strategic Initiative, Community Rights and Gender Strategic Initiative, and others. The work of NSWP on global fund activities is funded through the Community Rights and Gender Strategic Initiative. Basically, in all these areas, catalytic funding can be viewed as a stimulus, like a shot in the arm, to give programs a boost to ensure the maximum impact of global fund investments. How does it work? Let's look first at matching funds. Matching funds are designed to inspire innovation and ambitious evidence-based programming approaches to maximize impact in specific strategic priority areas. Matching funds means a country should, at minimum, match one-for-one investment from domestic funding for catalytic priorities to access matching funds from the Global Fund. This means if a country identifies a program based on evidence and possibly previous performance that is considered a strategic priority, they can access catalytic funding up to the amount they are willing to invest from domestic financing. This would then double the funding available for that particular program. A US $317 million from catalytic investment funds are designated for the 2020-2022 matching funds in the following priority areas. There are three under HIV prevention, one for HIV-TB, two for TB, and one cross-cutting for human rights. Under HIV prevention, for adolescent girls and young women in high prevalence settings. Also under HIV prevention, by scaling up community-led key population programs. And finally under HIV prevention, to increase condom programming. For HIV-TB, there is TB preventative treatment for people living with HIV. For TB, finding missing people with TB. And again for TB, strategic engagement in Western and Central Africa. For cross-cutting, support for programs to remove human rights related barriers to health services. Subject to confirmation that further funding is available, there is a possible additional $24.5 million available for these priority areas: HIV prevention, differentiated HIV service delivery, including self-testing, resilient and sustainable systems for health, data science in community health, increased data collection, monitoring and analysis to inform decision making and service development. In order to access matching funds, applicants must meet specific conditions on how allocated funds would be budgeted towards the matching funds priority areas. These conditions are outlined in allocation letters sent to countries. More details are in the applicant handbook for 2020-2022. You just have to put Global Fund Applicant Handbook in your internet search engine and click on the link to access this. Technical assistance will be available from the Global Fund to help countries operationalise matching funds. Next, let's look at catalytic multi-country approaches. The Global Fund serves the needs of countries, but diseases don't respect borders. Sometimes the most effective solution is one that brings together several countries or regions. Through multi-country funding, the Global Fund can address a limited number of key multi-country priorities deemed critical to fulfill the aims of the Global Fund strategy. These catalytic investments complement those made through the allocation methodology. The catalytic multi-country strategic priorities for 2020-2022, the funding cycle, are for malaria elimination in Southern Africa. There's US $20 million has been allocated. Addressing drug resistance in the Greater Mekong sub-region, where $120 million has been allocated. For TB, multi-country approaches, $40 million have been allocated. And for HIV key populations and sustainability in a multi-country approach, $50 million have been allocated. For some priority areas, applicants will be pre-identified for continuation or pre-shaping, and the Global Fund will invite them to develop a funding request that addresses the approved priority area and regional focus. For other priority areas, there will be a competitive process allowing potential applicants to respond to a request for proposal, an RFP. In all these cases, appropriate dialogue with relevant stakeholders is expected, depending on the scale and scope of the approach. Pre-shaping. Pre-shaping broadly relates to a continuation of an existing grant. Applicants will be selected for pre-shaping based on their previous grant performance, where the Global Fund confidence is high that they will continue to perform well. The funding request template is shorter, it's only 8 pages, and requires a limited number of supporting documentation. However, the funding request must include a prioritised above allocation request or PAR list of priorities deemed important but which cannot be included in the main funding request. The pre-shaping funding request template focuses on 4 sections. 1. Context related to the Global Fund request. 2. funding request and prioritization, and this is expected to be organized using the modular framework. 3. Operationalization and implementation. And 4. Sustainability. The idea of pre-shaping is to enable well-performing countries to take advantage of a less exhaustive process, a simplified funding request template, reduced amount of supporting documentation when submitting their funding requests. It also acknowledges that a grant that is performing really well and making a difference could do even better with the addition of catalytic investment. Then there is the competitive application process, or request for proposal. For priority areas with a competitive application process, a request for proposals, RFP, will be published on the Global Fund website. These RFPs will include specific terms of reference, TORs, that the applicant will need to address in their funding request. RFPs will be published approximately 3 or 4 months prior to the expected submission window in order to allow for robust regional dialogue. The CCM will need to decide if they can adequately address the TORs and make a decision on submitting the request for proposals application form. The technical review panel will assess pre-shaping and full review funding requests and RFPs that meet minimum application and eligibility criteria, and for RFPs will identify the strongest proposal that aligns with the terms of reference for each priority area. Potential applicants are encouraged to work together to jointly present a comprehensive and compelling proposal that fully meets the TORs. The final area for catalytic investment are the strategic initiatives. Strategic initiatives are areas that cannot be funded through the country grant, but are deemed necessary to support their success. Global Fund catalytic investments support programs, activities, and strategic initiatives that complement country allocations and that are essential to achieve the aims of the Global Fund strategy for 2017 to 2022 and the global partner plans. For the 2020-2022 funding cycle, catalytic investments include strategic initiatives that are needed to support the success of country allocations, but cannot be funded through country grants. In November 2019, the Global Fund Board approved 19 work streams, totaling $343 million under the Strategic Initiatives modality. NSWP's work on the Global Fund is supported through the Community Rights and Gender Strategic Initiative. There are 11 Strategic Initiative priority areas. Within these, $15 million is available for community rights and gender, and $20 million for an emergency fund. The board did agree to fund treatment continuation in Venezuela, for example, although they are not an eligible country. To learn more about the Strategic Initiative priority areas, simply put Global Fund Strategic Initiatives in your internet search engine and click on the link. It would take too long to go through them in this video. Finally, a brief comment about PAR, Prioritised Above Allocation Request. Unfunded quality demand and PAR are often where we find services for key populations. The PAR list are priorities the country recognised as important, but which cannot be included in the main funding request, usually due to competing priorities. This prioritised above allocation request is reviewed by the technical review panel so that strategically focused and technically sound interventions can be registered as unfunded quality demand. The change here is that now, if funding becomes available for the unfunded quality demand PAR list, programs will be funded in order of priority, decided by the CCM. All countries must include a PAR list with their funding request. It is critical that if services or programs for sex workers are on the PAR list, that they are as high up the list as possible. The importance of your community representative on the CCM cannot be overstated, as they are the ones who will have to advocate for where your programs are on the priority list. This is why it's important that you have a strong relationship with your CCM rep, that they keep you informed, and that, using the SWIT, you supply them with the strongest case and evidence as possible to strengthen their advocacy. That's it from me. Until the next one, I hope this video has been helpful and useful. Bye.